Your host for the workplace, Toney Orr. And as always, our in studio is my co-host, the Reverend Dr. Denise. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Grand Rising.
Hey. And so before we get started, just want to thank all of you for tuning in this morning to the workplace here on KAP at 88.3 FM. Hope everybody is having a great day, morning so far. I hope you're having a great week. Just want to thank you for all your support, all your donations, all the pledges that you give. KBF is a non-profit 100,000 watt radio station, one of only 12 100,000 watt community radio stations in this country. So we sustain ourselves off of your donations, off of your pledges, and your giving to KABF 88.3, and we really appreciate that. We cannot do what we do without you. For over 38 years, we have been making sure that we are enlightening, educating, and empowering the people, the community. So you can get three ways. You can go to www.kabf.org and you can hit the donate button while you're donating online. You can also become a sustaining member of KAB at 88.3 FM. Your monthly contribution will help sustain us. We are all volunteers. That we do our shows, we do our talk shows, we do our music, as a labor of love for the community. You can also send a check or money order to 2101 South Main Street here in the city of Little Rock. 72204 is the zip code. Or you can stop by the station here at that same address, 2101 South Main Street, here in Little Rock, and you can give your donations in person or your pledge in person. And believe me, we won't allow you to leave empty-handed. Also, you can call 501-372-6119. That's 501-372-6119. And you can give your donation over the phone, the pledge over the phone. Or you can call one of your favorite shows that you listen to throughout the week at 501-433-0088. That's 501-433-0088. So before we move any farther into our discussion this morning, I want to give my co-host, Denise, an opportunity to greet you and give any announcements that she has.
Well, yes. It is always good to be in your presence. So glad to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you today. We do have a couple of announcements. One of them you already heard before the show got started. We are talking about the People's Celebration, which is happening on May 6th at St. Michael's Episcopal Church at 12415 Cantrell Road, right here in the city of Little Rock. But this Saturday, like today is Thursday, so I'm talking about day after tomorrow at 7 p.m., we are having our Black Love 2 event from the voices of Black men. You've got Pastor Toney Orr, you've got Marquis Hunt, you've got Daniel Collier, Keon Anderson, and Kevin Holmes having this conversation with us at the intersection of Black love and the system of white inhumanity. And who is opening us up on Saturday? It is LaRon McAdoo, activated. He's going to start us off with some spoken word. It is an event that you don't want to miss. It is pay what you can. So it doesn't matter what's in your pocket. You can show up anyhow. And it's going to happen at the New Deal Gallery at 2003 South Louisiana Street, right here downtown in the city of Little Rock in the state of Arkansas. You do not want to miss this conversation. It's going to be rich. It's going to be robust. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be thought-provoking. It's going to be all of that and more. So we hope to see you there on this Saturday, April 8th, 7 p.m. The doors actually open at 6:30 because we are starting exactly at 7 o'clock. We will be recording the conversation live because it will play on this station, KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people.
Okay. I have misplaced some of my announcements that I was going to read. Between my office and the studio.
Is it from Dana about the summer youth thing?
The summer youth thing, and I know you have it also, but also about how you can get disaster relief If you have been impacted by the tornado, if you have been impacted by the tornado and you need services, there was information that I gave out Tuesday that I want to get back out today. The one thing I can tell you, you can call 211, which is a number that will where they will help you get to the services that you need. Also, the city center or the emergency city center that was set up on North Shackelford Road is open from 7 until 3, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. And like I said, I don't have the notes with me right now, the information and the number. But if you call 211, they can direct you to all the services that's needed. We just want to make sure we stay on top of this to make sure that equity is being given to make sure everybody is receiving the services that they need. So today, and caller, I saw you calling in. Remember, if you call in, we may not be able to hear you, but just start talking. Phone lines open 501-433-0088, 501-433-0088. What I want to talk about this morning is we understand and this disaster, this tornado, and if you notice over the past, it seemed like for the past 4 weeks, we've had these tornadoes throughout the South and Midwest hit various cities. One hit in Missouri yesterday where 5 people lost their lives. And before, about 3 weeks ago, we had one in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. And then we had the one here in Little Rock and Wynn. And before that, there was one in Crossett a few weeks ago. So you had these disasters coming in and happening, and a lot of people are traumatized. A lot of people are trying to pick up the pieces. There are a lot of different things that are happening. We want to make sure that we've been pushing for the governor and the city and legislators to suspend rent payments for those who have suffered losses if they live in apartment complexes or even homes that they were renting, that you suspend those payments until further notice, until they can get a handle on all this, and if not, to help provide funds for those residents so they can continue. Because some of these landlords, they really don't care, like, hey, we want our money. They're not being looking at it in a humane way and saying that people have suffered. We're also looking at trying to make sure that people who have lost their transportation and can't get to their jobs, that these companies will not fire them or not dock them in some way or penalize them because they can't get to their jobs. And so in the midst of all this, in the midst of all this trauma, in the midst of all this disaster, in the midst of all this devastation and destruction, the governor on Monday, announced his tax cut for the top earner, personal income tax, top earners, and corporate tax. So the top earners got lowered from 4.9 to 4.7, and the corporate tax, I think, went from 5.6 to 5.3, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, let somebody please call me and correct me on the corporate. So it's estimated that it's going to cost the state in general revenue over the term. I think this year they're talking about it's going to be a $500 million decrease in general revenue. Then next year they're talking about something like 180 something million, 184, 187 million next year, and the year after that is going to be around $87 million that's not coming into the general revenue. And so to me, on top of a disaster, you have another disaster. Because if money isn't coming in, then that means services is going to be cut. Services, because you have to make up that money from somewhere. If you don't have that money coming in, where are you going to make it up at? So now you have this school funding bill that's going to cost millions of dollars, with this voucher, with this teacher pay raise. You have Medicaid, Medicare that is going to cost more. You have all these services that people need, especially in a time like this, especially when there are going to be more people pushing for services. There are going to be more people looking for SNAP benefits. There are going to be more people looking for the services that are offered by the state. And now you have this money that may not be there. So we talk about on our shows, different shows here on KBF, about the inequality of how our legislators legislate and some of the agendas that they have. There is this perception that they want to cut spending, but at what cost? You're cutting spending, but you're not bringing in money. So that means that somewhere along the line, a lot of people are going to suffer. And so one of the reasons that Governor Sanders said that they needed to cut these taxes, they needed to cut this, is that a lot of people, those top earners, and they're talking about the ones who are making $400,000 or more in the state of Arkansas. They're talking about how these top earners, some of them are actually moving out of the state of Arkansas, and they want to keep them in. They also talk about business not wanting to come and do businesses, not wanting to come and do business in Arkansas because of the high corporate tax. And we talked about this on a show once before, that when they raised the minimum wage, Ron Zook, who is the executive director of the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce, said that this is going to be it's going to be disastrous for business because no business wants to come in and do business with the state of Arkansas because of this wage increase. And so it made me feel like, so what you're saying, as long as we keep people below a living wage, then business really want to come in because if they're going to make money, they're going to make more money because they don't have to pay a living wage. So that's the discussion this morning. How do you feel about this tax cut? And it's something that's been going on for the past couple of years. Even with Governor Hutchinson, he started cutting personal tax, income tax. And now this is going to be the combination of it. And also there's a push to get rid of the personal income tax altogether. But it goes back that who is going to affect more are Black people and poor white people, poor brown people. It's going to affect them more because you're not going to be able to cover those services that are needed. And when you think about it, the first thing they want to cut when to balance the budget is services for those who need it and education. So I just want to get your thoughts on it this morning, because it just really, really bothered me that in the midst of all that's going on, you come out with this legislation that is going to hinder us more, even hinder people even more. So phone lines are open, 501-433-0088, 501-433-0088. So what are your thoughts on it, Denise?
Thanks for the question, Tony. I want to say shout out to Cornelius and Keith. I see you all on Facebook. You all are watching and listening. And I know that there are so many other people because when I see you out and about, sometimes you call me on the phone just to let me know that you were listening to the show. So thank you all so much. I'm sitting here trying to connect the dots. So when you talk about having corporate taxes cut because we want to make sure that we keep them in the state, and then we don't want to raise minimum wage, so we want these people to have to work for these corporations, and they're not making a sustainable wage, but the corporation is making even more money off of their backs. And then me as a small business owner, you tax at a rate of 19.8%, which for some of us is hard to maintain, which means that we have to make decisions sometimes to go back into the corporate structure because we cannot sustain ourselves at that rate. We're just talking about the taxes. And so you're forcing us into this system of capitalism that you know does not work in our favor. And it continues to be an example of what Dr. Buzek was saying. We are living in apartheid. And so when will we as a people be so outraged about the decisions that these folks are making that we do something about it, that we push back in ways that are tangible and that affect their bottom line? Because it's clear to me that the governor, along with most of the politicians and most of the capitalist society, they're only concerned about the bottom line. So we got to figure out ways to affect their bottom line so that you'll listen to me, because this is not sustainable at all.
No, and I'm glad you brought up the conversation that we had on Saturday at Pyramid Bookstore with Dr. Alan Buzek. Great. It was a great conversation, and when he brought up that the idea, and when he brought up that we're still living in this apartheid system, and when I hear that when I hear the government talk about cutting these corporate tax because you want Arkansas attracted to business. You want Arkansas to shine as a destination for business because we're not paying anybody anything. We're keeping them, so to speak, in a place that's going to be detrimental to them. And it goes back to the idea, it goes back to this idea of mine that Arkansas is still this big plantation, and on the plantation, the money that is made goes to the top, to the back during the period of enslavement. It went to the white plantation owners. It went to the white establishment, and everybody else, blacks, their job was to work and to serve at the behest of the master. Well, I look at it the same way. When you have these corporations coming in, and a great example to me is Walmart. For those who don't know, even though Walmart physical building is headquartered in Bentonville, Arkansas, the money that they raise, or the incorporation of Walmart, is in Delaware. They have it incorporated in Delaware because Delaware has no state tax, no state income tax. So they headquartered there, and they're making all this money, and because it's such a big entity in Arkansas, it's making all this money, but it's making money off the backs of poor Black, poor white, poor brown people. And you are required to serve. You are required to work. You are required to come in every day and really be traumatized because you're not making enough money to really sustain yourself, really have a living wage. You have to worry about how I'm going to take care of my family. You have to worry about all these things, and that produces so much trauma. And so when you look at it, when they talk about we're going to make it so that businesses want to come in and perpetuate what you want to call it, this steel plantation, this apartheid, this status quo, it should make all of us stop and say, hold up, what's going on? But the crazy thing about it is people that are affected by it continue to vote for the people who will perpetuate this trauma on them.
And it's important to say that when you say people are voting for them, I could hear somebody say, I didn't vote for them. But if you don't vote, your choice not to vote is a vote for them.
Yes.
You're still voting for them by not voting. And that's important. It's also important for us to know that when you talk about the best business climates in the world, in the United States, Arkansas is rated one of the 10 worst business climates. And I think that for the Sarah Huckabee Sanders of the world, they will say that's because we need to lower the tax for the corporations. But really, it's because you won't pay a sustainable wage. It's because of the conditions in which people have to work. It's because you don't offer the kinds of benefits that make it worthwhile for people to say, yes, this is something I want to be passionate about and to dedicate my employee time to. Like because I don't want to say we want to devote our lives to it. That is not what I mean at all. But there are people that I know who go to work every day and they have no joy for what they're doing. They have no love. They have no passion. It is only because of a paycheck, because they have to live. They have to pay their bills. They have to feed their children. They have to have a roof over their head. But there's nothing in their body that says, yes, I'm excited about getting up to go to work because of the conditions. And so it's really insulting when we hear the governor say, oh, no, we've got to make these decisions because we want the best for Arkansas for people who make over $400,000. It's insulting. If you want the best for Arkansas, you will be talking about every single person in Arkansas. You will be concerned about every single business. You will be concerned about every community, every neighborhood. That's what would make me believe you. I don't believe a word coming out of your mouth because it's clear to me that that's just not the truth. You lie all the time to serve your constituents, and this is the mess that we are in because of it. And not just Sanders, all of who operate in that way.
Yeah, and when you think about how business, and of course, business is in the business of making money. That's their bottom line. They want to make this money. They want to make this money for their stockholders, and any way they can, they want to help facilitate that. They don't care about what's going to happen to you because your job is to make me money. Your job is to make sure that my pockets are full. My job is to make sure that my children are well educated, my children are well fed, but we don't care about yours. You have to fend for yourself as long as you got my money. Caller. 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 Go ahead, caller.
Yes, people love dog. What's up in here? Another one of them malfunction days. Look, have you ever been to one of those big plants where they have a raid, where they have so many Mexicans working, but when they come in with them dogs and you see everybody running every way and all that, it's just a sight to see. I've been in on a couple of those raids, and man, but you know what? I noticed it don't take them but probably about 5 to 7 days to get back to America. Now I know, like, and also we think I'm bashing the Mexicans, but I just like to stand up for a lot of the people, our people that's on the port, that's having an illusion of inclusion, that really don't get to have that pursuit of happiness, which that's why we say we're so marginalized. We have to go on and on, but I'll leave it right there. Again, peace and love to all.
And so when we start we start talking about how these corporations, how they operate. For those of you who don't know, as a union organizer, one of the things that unions did, it gave in these factories, these other manufacturing businesses, it gave Black people an opportunity to move up. It gave them an opportunity uh, uh, to go into the so-called middle class. It gave them through better wages, through different things, retirement plans. It gave them a chance to move up. So in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, those manufacturing jobs, and I thought about this. I had a conversation with a union, a longtime union organizer who used to be head of the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, and having a conversation, and they were talking about how he talked about the path of what business did, what legislators did, and how so many jobs that benefited Black people all of a sudden disappeared. And so, it's the same model that to me they're doing here in Arkansas. They ship so many jobs over, whether it was to China, whether it's to South America, whether it's to the Far East, looking for cheap labor. They didn't care, we will rise up and talk about sweatshops in the Far East that are making American-made products. We will talk about the China as they have this structure where workers go in and work and make these products that are sold in America. But we will not raise our eyebrow, raise a voice, or raise a finger when you talk about the sweatshops here in America, or even here in Arkansas. When you look at a Family Dollar, you look at a General Dollar, you look at a Walmart, they are nothing but sweatshops. They are nothing but, we're going to pay you the lowest we can pay you. Just the thought, just the word, minimum wage. I'm going to pay you enough, just enough. When you talk about the plantation system, the masters gave the enslaved people enough. We just want you to have enough to sustain your energy. We just want you to have enough the way you can get up tomorrow morning before the sunrise and work until the sunset. How many people do you know that get up early in the morning? They go to one job. They leave that job and have to go to another job. They leave that job and have to go to another job. Then you don't want to provide health care. You don't want to provide child care. You don't want to provide any services that's going to help you. So it's the same thing. And how do we not recognize that the similarities between what's going on with this capitalistic system, not only in other places, but especially here in America?
Well, I would argue that the slave owners, the slave masters, or the people who owned slaves did not want us to even have enough in that condition. When you think about what they gave us to eat, it wasn't enough. When I went to the Whitney Museum and we looked at the quarters where they kept the enslaved people, they had it was a whole family that would be in what would be considered a cell. And so that wasn't enough. So they're not concerned about giving us enough. You were on it when you said the minimum. What can I get away with? Whatever I can get away with, then that's all I want to be able to provide. And when I was challenging the amount of money that I have to pay in taxes as a small business owner, I learned, I don't know why I never thought about this before, but the money that people who are incarcerated make, they are taxed on that.
Yes.
And I'm like, so you don't want to tax Amazon, you don't want to tax Google, but you want to tax, first of all, the people who are incarcerated. Absolutely, they are treated as slaves because the Constitution gives us permission to do that. So they're treated that way. And then you say, well, the $5, it's not even $5, the $2, the $1 that you're making a day, then you got to pay me taxes on that. It's a ridiculous system. Why aren't we completely outraged? That is the question. Why aren't we mad? And I think that the answer comes from what Dr. Buzak called manufactured contentment. So we've gotten to the point that, well, because I do have a job, because I do have a roof over my head, because I do have food on my table, I'm just going to look, y'all, I'm just going to stay right here. Look, don't let me rock the boat. Don't let me say anything. Let me just put my head down and keep moving without looking at the broader picture that you may have a roof over your head, but you're not free. You may have food on your table, but you're not liberated. What do you want more than anything else? It should be your freedom.
It should. It should. And I'm glad you brought up the term manufactured content because that's one thing. That's one of the things this capitalistic society does. It makes you feel like you have something when you really don't. And when we talk about this minimum, when we talk about this enough, I'm not trying. This system is not trying to give you. Especially when it comes to Black people, it's not trying to give you a way to freedom. It's trying to keep you convinced that you are free, but you're not. And so when you talk about this tax cut, and I'm glad you brought that up about small businesses, that 19%. So the system is set up that once you get to a certain level of income, 400,000, I'm just going to use that. The tax code, the laws are set up for you to keep more of your money in your pocket. It's set up to where you have all these loopholes. A former president, Donald Trump, who claimed or was a billionaire, and they were concerned that he wasn't paying taxes. And he was straight up, no, I'm not paying any taxes. But then he said that you're mad at me about the system that you set up. And I'm using that system. And so one of the fears to me is that we can't let certain people get to that place, because if they do, then they're going to have the opportunity to get these loopholes. They're going to have the opportunity to operate in these tax laws. And when you look at someone who's making, $1 million in income, bringing $1 million in income, and they're paying less taxes than somebody who's making $50,000 a year or less, and you wonder, well, how did this happen? What is going on? And the one thing that I think one of the things that happened, even as we find out, or even as we are educated about this system, even as it's brought to our attention, it goes back to that contentment. It's that, like you said, Denise, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm good. I'm cool. But it's really a detriment to you. It's really a disaster around you. And and so many people don't want to push or don't want to rise up, and they just want to stay complacent.
Yeah, and I guess the question becomes, what do you really have? When you aren't making your own decisions about your own life, when you are not in control of your body, when you can't even make the decisions about what you put in your body to nourish it, when you don't have access to transportation that is freely given all day long and all night long to get you from one end of the city to the next, because our transportation system is ridiculous. Like, what do we really have? So some of us, we get so excited that we can check off these boxes that we lose sight of the actual goal. And I root that in the system of poverty, because I think so many of us grew up lacking. And because we grew up lacking, all of our time was spent saying, one of these days, I'm going to have my own house. One of these days, I'm going to be able to buy my own car. One of these days, I'm going to have a job where I make $50,000. And so because we're rooted in that, because we are living in lack by design, it's not because we want to, of course, but by design, then that becomes the only thing we think about. And so as we grow, we are only motivated by getting out of that condition. And then once we are out of that condition, we think we've arrived. Oh my goodness, I'm no longer where I used to be. And we even say it, thank God I'm not where I used to be, but we got this whole cliche. How does it go? I may not be where I want to be, but I thank God that I'm not where I used to be, right? That's what we say all the time. And so I think that for us, I think that most of what we're dealing with comes back to trauma that is unhealed, because living in poverty is traumatic, and we have not been given the resources to deal with that. So we are still looking through that lens and applying it to everything that we do. That's what makes us okay with what's going on around us, as long as I can hold on to this house, because I know what it's like not to have a home. And so that becomes the issue with Black folks. We need healing. The whole world does, but Black folks in particular. And then you've got systems like religion that says, you don't need to focus on your brain health. Jesus will fix it. And then when we turn to the Jesus that we want to fix it, it's the Jesus that they've manufactured for us. Not the Jesus that we can come to know on our own, but the Jesus we've been given, who's designed to keep us down. And so here we are, entrapped by all of this systemic oppression and exclusion, all of this war, and we cannot focus because we cannot think because we are not healed. And so when are we going to decide for ourselves that it's important for us to attend our brain health? It's important for me to get a therapist. It's important for me to have a counselor. And I'm not talking about your pastor. I'm talking about somebody who is skilled and gifted and graced and talented and called to this work to help you see what you need to see so that you can move in a different way.
Yeah, and I agree. The system is not designed, especially for Black people, it's not designed to keep you healthy. It's not designed to.
It's designed to make you sick.
It's designed to make you sick. And I'm glad you said that. One of the things that the slave, the master, the one thing he was able to do, not only was he able to make money off of you working yourself in the ground, he was able to make money off of your debt. He was able to make money all the way around. All the majority of the large insurance companies in this country made their money, made their foundation, made their fortune off of the selling of Black bodies. And so now when you look at, when we just talked about being healthy, when you are traumatized, when you are working so much, when you aren't able to think clearly or think in a different way that will free you, your mind, and your body, that brings on so many different sicknesses. Studies have shown that Black people suffer from so many more, on average, diseases, whether it's cancer, whether it's colon cancer, whether it's heart attacks, whether it's dialysis, kidney failure, all these different diseases. And Cole Riley's book, this here flesh, she talks about her father. And she talked about how her father died, I want to say in his 40s. And she said that, they said it was because of other underlying health conditions, but she said that it's because he could only sleep like 2 or 3 hours a night because he had all these different jobs. He had all these different stresses, living in a certain neighborhood, worrying about, can I get enough money to send my kids to school, not being able to take a real vacation, not being able to relax, all those things. And so money is still being made off of us because we still have to have these pills. We still have to have these treatments. We still have to have this, and not once are we taking the time to stop and say, okay, how do I get out of this? How do I think a different way? How do I get healed, as you said, Denise? How do I do this against all the pressure that's being applied to my life? Call you on there.
Yeah, good morning, Sister Denise, Brother Toney, and listening audience, those on the web. I just want to add a little something to your narrative, and it's about the long-lasting effect of trauma that systematically has been put upon those who were actually descendants, if you will, of the slave of America. It's always been the American dream to work and, do what you can for your family. You can remember that was an exodus from the South, the farm workers to the North. They got union jobs, a lot of them are factory jobs where they were, at one time, you were invested in the companies where they gave you pensions even after you had worked there and done what you had done for the little wages. You still were able to get a certain amount of stability by having these great pensions from the unions in the railroads, the automobile works, and of course what they did was they took all the good jobs, not all of them, but took most of the good jobs up there and sent them overseas, if you will, and exported them. And a lot of folks missed out on the American dream. Once they were able to achieve certain things, they couldn't buy homes and go back to where they came from and live, good lives because the government kept them from getting homes and things by the different agencies would not even let blacks, they weren't entitled to it. Even if you had, when it comes to the GI Bill, in some places the states oversaw it and you couldn't get a toehold. Now, you know what I'm saying? And then they got this narrative that, well, we need to cut taxes for the rich so they can invest in the community, but the communities they're investing in, if you just got any amount of knowledge, is all of these different agencies overseas where they put monies in all of these different countries and hire those workers, and then the jobs that used to be here in America where you get a toehold, they don't exist anymore. So that narrative about the tax break is going on. It's coming up time for taxes, and they saying we get a tax break, but the tax breaks are always for the rich. We don't invest in our communities, but into the communities of other countries. And I just want to make that known. That's traumatizing as well for a lot of folks that don't realize how the jobs were taken away from here, where folks used to have an opportunity to earn a living. It's just that much harder now than it was before the tax and different types of avenues for making money, because the old jobs don't exist anymore. They still exist, but they're just somewhere else, because people still make cars, they still make parts for the automobile industry or whatever industries they are. They've just gone. Of computers and things of that nature. You probably know the words I'm speaking about. And they do this even though there's like they said, a moratorium on folks coming to work in this country, but they still have a lot of folks from certain
areas of the world to come and work in the tech industry. And the other jobs, they export to those places, manufacturing jobs. And that's something that should be recognized, because all the tax breaks that go to, like they said, create more jobs, they actually create jobs elsewhere. And I just want to put that narrative out there, because when they get to talk about taxes, that means more for the little man, but they don't ever give a break for it. Yeah, if you just look at your receipts, you'll find out that the person that's working and like $6,000 less, as you mentioned, they pay more for taxes than anybody. Like man said, he's a millionaire, but his secretary pays more taxes than he does. I just want to get that out there, because I want you to touch on that being a union man. You know exactly what I'm saying. And I hope someone else will come in and clarify to make someone that's affected by it. Like they outsource all the different jobs like janitorial, cooking, and housekeeping from these different so-called hospitals, Baptist Hospital, St. Vincent Hospital, even the state hospital, which is the University of Arkansas. All those jobs used to be tied into the state pension systems, or those systems with those pensions with those companies, but now they outsource them, and you don't even know they're not really outsourced. But those particular workers don't get invested into the profits of that entity. They outsource housekeeping, janitorial, and food service, and all of those industries, and it's just a shame that we've done that. And that's all I want to say. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you, man.
Well, I want to make sure that we also talk about, since we're talking about how the system capitalizes off of our bodies and how they commodify our bodies, and you talked about it even in our death, I want to also add to the conversation that they capitalized off of our bodies and made money when they lost our bodies too.
Yes.
Because once the system of enslavement was officially or legally ended, they were paid reparations for the slaves, their property that they lost. And it's only been recently that the UK stopped paying people for having lost those bodies.
Right. Good point. Calling you on the air.
Okay, Brother Sullivan, very quickly, I was wondering why everybody always say that the law of compensation is a natural law. Now, we know that these criminals that set up the laws to run the government are doing it in an incorrect form. But at the same time, we knowing that there's a natural law of compensation, why don't we stick to the fact that reparation is a part of our compensation for all that we've been through, and their guilt, when you can just look at it, see it as a fact. Well, it's either a fact or it's false, but the fact of what we've been through should require a compensation, which should mean reparation for our people. And I want to know why that natural law and why we don't address that as much as the other whining all the time. Again, peace and love to all.
One thing I want to say, and I'm going to address that in a second. When I look at, we were talking about at the beginning of the show, we're talking about this corporate tax cut and everything. So the steel mills in the steel companies in Blytheville, OCL, and Northeast Arkansas, when they started to come in several years ago, the state legislatures voted to give these tax cuts to these steel mills, upwards to $500 million in these tax cuts. And they gave them this, they let them, the state built infrastructure for them. They helped pay for a lot of the building of these plants, and they raised the tax. There was a tax that they voted to impose on every citizen of the state of Arkansas to help pay for this. And then we were, during that time, we were like, why am I paying for a steel mill 4 hours away, 3 hours away from me, but I can't get you to increase, to use tax money to build infrastructure here in my city, to increase jobs in my city. And they're still getting tax cuts. They're still getting, and they just voted during this session to increase the tax cut, to give them more money. And that's when we have to wake up and say, and stop and say, hold up. How much more are we willing to put up with this? How much longer are we willing to turn a blind eye? And how much longer are we willing to keep putting these people in these positions where they make these decisions? Caller, you on there?
I love your show. I love your show when I'm listening, and it's a common thing that's been going on that I've been listening to. I might not be on the side of everybody else because I'm what you might want to consider wealthy. I'm one of the people who benefit off of the tax cuts. Okay. I get a lot of flack, a lot of this, a lot of that about it wouldn't be so well off if you had to pay the same taxes as everybody else. I wasn't always rich, but I'm glad that we have a tax cut because without the tax cut, you won't have the regular job. You won't have a job. You have to pay a lot of people. And tax cuts are there for a reason. And if people would open their own business and support each other's business, then they could benefit off the tax cut too. And I just think that as black people, we need to stop asking for so much stuff. Stop asking for this. Stop asking. Once you give us a job, once you help us out with this, once you come down and bless us and help us and save us, it's damn all that. It's a business. To plant something in the street, to open up a business in the street, to start working for yourself in the street, stop asking for so much stuff and start doing yourself for yourself. Stop integrating and start innovating, and they'll come to you and pay you and get the damn tax stuff for yourself. It's done for everybody. Anybody can do it. It's just money. Get your own. Stop asking for a loan. Stop asking to be put on. That's what I'm saying. That's what I got to say.
Yes, but here's the thing. So as a person who did start their own business for free, a person who is not asking the government for a dime, a person who is willing to employ other folks, specifically those who look like me, I've done that. And then for a small business who's making less than $200,000 a year, less than $150,000 a year, you tax me upwards of $10,000. And so you're saying to me that the tax cut is good because it benefits you because you obviously are making $400,000. And I'm saying, okay, well, I'm not saying you shouldn't benefit from the tax code. I'm saying, but everybody ought to be able to benefit from it. You're benefiting from it because I cannot, because I am the small business that's feeding you and making sure that food is on your table when food is not on mine. And so this is not a fight against you as a wealthy person. This is a fight against people who decide that only some of us should be wealthy and you're going to be wealthy at the expense of others. That's what the fight is about. And so when we talk about reparations or compensation, the problem is if we say the word reparation, it requires that we say that we understand that it's a legal term, that you have to take responsibility. You have to be accountable for what you have done to the bodies of Black folks. And this country is not willing to do that. So the white establishment, the system of white humanity, doesn't want to have the conversation because they don't want to admit their evil doing. Black folks on the other side, we can't have the conversation because we still fighting about what reparations should look like. Some of us fighting because we want it to be money. Some of us fighting because we want it to be land. Some of us fighting because we want it to be education. We need to get ourselves together on the same page so that we can make the demands and require that it gets done.
Okay, I see you calling, caller, but we got about a few seconds left. and just want to finish up with the show. Want to thank everybody for calling in. Want to thank you for all the comments. One thing I do want to remind people of that the last caller said this, that he wasn't always wealthy. And so we can say what we want to say, but the system will allow, I used to didn't understand this word, but I understand it now. They will allow some outliers to move through. But so many of the people can't get there. Through roadblocks, through different things, they may not be able to get there. So that's something that we need to also address and also understand. I do like.
Yeah, and I wonder what he's doing with the money that he is receiving from the tax cuts. I wonder how he's investing that into the community. How is he investing that into other small businesses so that they can rise to the level that he is with his business? Like because I think a lot of times, especially as Black folks, we sit back in the cut, want to count our money. We want to do the little rain dance with $100 bills, and we're not asking ourselves the very same questions that Matt is challenging us to ask about the corporations. You outsource this stuff, or you get these tax cuts, but you do not invest in the community. And that is what is even more traumatic than anything else.
Yes. One last thing I want to leave you with. Yesterday, when I was reading the paper, in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is pushing legislation that states that the detriment of communism, or the effects of communism in America and socialism in America, needs to be taught from 7th graders through 12th, from 7th grade to 12th grade. He wants Floridians, children in school, to understand the badness of communism and socialism. But this is the same Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida who will not even allow students at all to talk about the history of Black people. He made them take AP American Black history out. Mm-hmm. But it's okay to talk about communism.
And doesn't he live in a house that's provided by the state?
Yes.
Ain't that socialist? So you benefiting from it. But you decided.
But we don't. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So tune in Monday for Down With. Oh no. I will not be here all next week. It's time for me to go on my fantastic voyage journey to all the offices I represent in Texas, Louisiana, and be heading into Mississippi. So Denise will be solo on Tuesday. She'll be solo on Thursday. But I know the Reverend Dr. Denise Darnell can handle it all. And so I see you on the flip side of next week. Make sure that there's an event at Sticky's tonight for KABF. Doors open at 7. I think Jacqueline said the bands or music starts at 8 o'clock. Stay tuned. You're going to hear more information about the People's Celebration coming on May the 6th. And
April 8th,
don't forget April 8th, this Saturday, the Black Love event too. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be inspiring. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. So give that address once again, Denise.
It is 2003 South Louisiana Street, right here in Little Rock, Arkansas. I think that's Pat Rogers' board. Is that who that is listening to us? I think I see you, Pat. Thanks for joining the conversation. 2003 South Louisiana Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, 72206. It's the New Deal Gallery. See you there at 7 o'clock.
All right. I know some of you looking at your clock and say, hey, they after 10 o'clock. Well, you know what? Sometimes we can go that way. So enjoy the rest of your day.